Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast, where we share bold insights and real stories for people leaders building cultures and companies that scale. I'm your host, Desiree B. Sharp, keynote speaker and CEO of Color Vision Lab. We're the people and culture consulting firm helping creative businesses design smarter systems and build high-performing teams. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Kortni Robinson, Vice President of Operations at the Power Group. If you want to scale your business without sacrificing your culture, this conversation is for you. And if you're exploring ways to elevate your people strategy, DM us the word growth on LinkedIn for a free consultation. Kortni, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to dive in. So first, one thing that I found really interesting about your background is that you've spent 9 years at the Power Group. You started there as a fresh graduate from undergrad, and you've been able to rise up the ranks to your VP role that you have today. I would love to learn a little bit more about what that journey has been like and how your role has changed over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, just like you said, I have been with the firm for almost 9 years. I'll be celebrating my ninth year anniversary at the end of August. I graduated from Texas Tech University again about 9 years ago in August of 2016 and moved to Dallas for an internship opportunity at the Power Group, actually. So, I started out as a public relations intern. PR was my minor. I was a journalism major at Tech. And when I was in that internship role, I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to work quite a bit on our new business development, or as anyone would call it, sales. So I was able to kind of jump into some of the proposal meetings with clients, responding to inquiries and things like that that we were receiving from our website and social media, and really just learn a little bit more about how the sales process works and bringing in new clients to our company. So, sort of segued a bit from the traditional PR focused internship into PR and a little bit of sales. Once I'd been in that role for, I want to say it was probably only 4 or 5 months, I got to work very closely with our president and CEO, Amy Power. And truly, she just kind of saw something in me in terms of sales and biz dev and asked me one day, "Is this something that you're interested in? Like, we've never really thought about growing our business development department." We had someone leading it at that time under her. But she thought, you've been doing a really great job with this. And I think you have a great knack for getting to know clients and building those relationships. Is this something you want to pursue? So I obviously said yes. I was still an intern at that time and wanted to continue my role at the company. So transitioned more into a sales focused role. I believe I was client development associate. And then a few years into that, I moved into the manager of client development role from there. And then I was really leading our sales team. And then from that, I kind of wanted a little bit more. So looking back into my college, degree that I received and what I was, hoping to do with my life, which was journalism or PR, I started kind of thinking to myself, I don't only want to do sales, I want to do more. I have a desire to work on some of these accounts too, not just bring them in. So Amy and I worked together to create a new role where I was director of sales and marketing. And in that role, I was able to help the agency with our own marketing, which is going to be like the Power Group social media, awards nominations, pitching ourselves for stories and things like we would for our clients, and got to dabble a bit in that versus just the traditional sales role. And then a few more years went by, and there was more of a need for assistance on the operations side of thing, which is leading me to today and where I am now. And now my role again is still focused on biz dev. I do still lead that, and it's probably, 60 to 70% of what I do. But on the operational side of things, I'm also overseeing all of our accounts, ensuring client satisfaction, that we're hitting our KPIs. If there's ever a major issue or anything, or sometimes just good news that clients want to share, they'll call me. I help staff the accounts and make the strategic decisions there on who would be the best fit for this, who has the most bandwidth and capacity, and then just general agency ops too. I help oversee our accounting and finance, as well as hiring and reviews for employees. So I really wear many hats right now, but I hope that answered your question in terms of kind of how I got to where I was today. I think that the needs have just changed over time, and I've kind of grown and molded into what the agency has needed.
Oh, absolutely. It's really amazing because you don't come across many professionals, especially younger professionals, who have spent an extended period of time at one singular company. Millennials have been historically known as the job hopping generation. I'm
Yeah.
also a millennial, and I definitely job hopped a lot in my earlier in my career, but I also didn't have the privilege of working at a small business. And I think that, you really were kind of like an SMB founder CEO's dream hire, being able to find someone when they're very green, eager to learn, and then be able to teach them everything about the business. I'm curious. I feel like I have an idea of, why you've stayed for so long, but what are some of the key parts of the culture, your experience working with the CEO or your job that has kept you at the Power Group for this long?
Yeah, absolutely. And I touched on it a little bit in terms of kind of explaining how I've changed my role over the years. But one thing that has always kept me really excited about this company and staying with the Power Group is that I've been able to really mold and shift, right? Like I mentioned, my desires kinda changed a little bit. I was getting a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better word, bored doing just sales and kinda wanting to dabble a bit more into what I went to school for, which was journalism, PR, and whenever I expressed that concern to our CEO, she said, "Well, let's figure out a way to make that happen." And that's where the shift changed into the sales and marketing position. And then now wanting to move into a more leadership position into the VP, I was able to take on some operational tasks. So that's definitely a piece of it. And her always making room for the things that I was interested in. Absolutely. Being able to grow so quickly into a leadership position was also something that was very intriguing to me. I know a lot of people, it can take many, many years, 10, 15 plus to get into a VP role, and being able to get into that 5 or 6 years into my career is a huge accomplishment and something that I know I wouldn't be able to do at a lot of other companies. But also on the culture side of things, that is huge for me, and that is something that I'm really proud of working on over the last few years with our leadership team and other leadership members. But the culture really has kept me here. I adore every person that works on this team. I'm great friends with them, both inside and outside of the office. We're all very, very close. We do a lot together, work and non work related, and that's huge for me. And then finally, the other piece that has also kept me here is the flexibility. That's something that our president and CEO has created over the years is a really flexible work environment in a multitude of ways. So right now we are a hybrid environment. So we come in a few days a week, which is really nice. But even going back to the beginning of my career, on a personal note, my father was really sick for a couple of years. He actually needed an organ transplant and was on the transplant list. And it required a lot of time away from work and visits to the hospital. And ultimately, he ended up getting that transplant, which was amazing, and needed to be in the hospital for about 3 weeks. And I was able to work from the hospital with him. And so the flexibility between that and even just to present day of being able to work remote, work from home is something that I really cherish, and I think it's definitely I know it's a reason I've stayed here for so many years too.
Wow, that is such a great example of how to care about the whole person when you are building trust relationships with employees and really just showing up when it matters the most, when life is lifing and maybe you need to take a step back from your normal workload or take some time off. And the last thing you need to be thinking about is what's going on at work if your job is still secure. So it sounds like an amazing thing that you found at the Power Group. Kortni, I'm curious to know if there are any specific leadership lessons or characteristics or qualities, anything that you've picked up. I'm sure you've picked up a ton by working hand in hand with the president CEO, but has any of her leadership style impacted how you show up as a leader with your direct reports?
Definitely. I think being able to trust your team to get their job done, to meet client KPIs, to show up to the office every day and pursue the things that they're supposed to be working on. I think that's huge. So, not only trusting your team, because obviously that comes over time, but being able to prove to them that you do trust them is huge. I think that's something that she's instilled in us. And then over the years, for me, actionable lessons and to your point, what you mentioned about things that I would take and that you could apply to someone else's experience. This may be different than what some people would recommend, but I over the years have noticed that getting to know somebody personally, not just professionally, in a professional environment is extremely important because at the end of the day, everybody is human. And I know that there's definitely a fine line that you can cross in terms of personal and professional, but I've found that at our agency, getting to know each other better on that personal level has been something that's really helped us grow closer, grow trust, and just have a great, strong team.
Mhm.
One thing that I have done specifically to get to know people more personally is I have twice a year meetings, so biannual meetings with everyone on my team, one on one. And currently, we're in the process of writing individual development plans, IDPs, for each team member. And I've asked everyone, I shared mine with them, which was very personal. You know, you talk a little bit about like your 3 year goal. What do you want your salary to be? What do you want your role to look like? How do you want to be growing in your personal and professional life? Did you get a dog? Have you had kids? Did you get married? So I have everybody creating those. It's a great exercise for anyone to do. And then I've asked everyone during our meetings, Q1 and Q3, to please share them with me. And they can share as much or as little as they want. Some people are like, here you go, read it, tell me what you think. And others are like, I'm going to read it to you. And there's some pieces that are a little personal that I'm going to leave out. And that's totally fine too. But I've really enjoyed getting to know people on that personal level because there's some things you find out about a person personally that you can help them succeed or maybe accomplish in their professional life too. So that's something that I found that is really, really important in growing a team and growing trust.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Courtney, I want to shift a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the trends or changes that you're seeing in the social media landscape. You've built a career at the Power Group across traditional PR, social media, digital integration. So, what changes have you seen in the social media landscape that have had the biggest impact on how your team at the Power Group operates?
Yeah. So, for a little bit of background on the Power Group, just exactly like you said, we are a PR and digital firm. In terms of PR, we are executing media relations. We work with influencers. We help our clients with events, submitting for awards, writing blogs, things like that. And then on the digital side, we help with social media content creation, posting and scheduling, photo and video shoots, really everything that you can think of digital, newsletters, things like that. So, what has changed, which is probably to no one's surprise, the biggest for us is definitely going to be ChatGPT, especially over even the last 6 months. We are starting to see more people rely, obviously, heavily on it since it is a platform that anyone can access and utilize for content creation specifically. But something that gives us hope, over the next few years is that you're never going to have that personalized aspect to it, especially on the PR side of things. Can it write a social media caption? Sure. Do we still need to tweak it to get to our client's perfect tone and voice? Yes, absolutely. But on the PR side of things, we have clients who, want to utilize it now to write a press release, but they're never going to be able, or at least not at this day and time, utilize chat to actually reach out to the reporters where our agency has cultivated those strong relationships and say, hey, so and so at the Dallas Morning News, I know we worked with you last month on this. Now, here's another opportunity we want to put in front of you from one of our trusted clients. So I think there's a personalization aspect to it and that real human interaction that isn't ever going to come from chat. So that's where we have hope. But it's definitely something that we're seeing many agencies utilize, many clients turn to instead of working with agencies, and it's hard to tell what's really gonna happen, in the near future with it.
Yes, that's definitely a trend that I'm seeing for a lot of the guests that I'm speaking to on this podcast. AI is disrupting so many industries and shifting how people, market, operate their businesses. And, you're very right in terms of there is this gap when it comes to just the human strategy and creativity that is behind having an actual strategist at an agency working for you as opposed to using ChatGPT. And so, yeah, you're definitely not alone in that. I've heard that feedback several times. So with trends like ChatGPT and, the rise of AI, evolving audience behaviors, what are some tough strategic or operational pivots you've had to make in response to these market shifts, whether it's staffing or utilizing different tools or shifting your processes? Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Specifically with AI and chat, I mean, we're using it too. That's a shift we've had. I'm personally not the most tech forward person, so I typically have a lot of resistance to it, but I can say since we've implemented using AI note takers, that's super helpful to not have to sit and be typing up the notes while you're on,
Hmm.
a new business call. So that's something we're using, something we've invested in. Similarly with ChatGPT, we utilize it from time to time. It mostly helps us in terms of, like, because we obviously have a ton of great writers and can execute that piece on our own. Where we're really utilizing it is for brainstorming. We are finding it very interesting to tap into when we're brainstorming for client campaigns and big ideas and things like that, because it can give us the idea and then we can bring in that human element of actually executing it, adding to it, you know what I mean, and implementing
Hmm.
that in real time. So the biggest change that I think we're seeing on our end is really just the need to have that extra revenue to put towards these tools, right? So investing in the note-taking tool that we're using now, investing in some of the other tools that we already use, like Slack or like Sprout Social, that are implementing these AI features that we want to try out that have a bit of an extra cost to them, being able to find things and move our budget around to be able to invest in that. I think that's something that a lot of businesses are probably dealing with right now and having to kind of re-strategize where their budget's going towards utilizing these tools.
Hmm. Sure, makes sense. So, what's one thing that your team is doing really well at right now? So, on both thinking about what's going on both the PR and the digital side, thinking about some of the client work that you're doing, where are you really excelling?
Somewhere that we're excelling and we always have, and I think always will, even as the times change, are restaurant grand openings. Very specific, I know, but that's something that we specialize in the food and bev and restaurant space. It's not our only core audience, or industry that we serve, but it is definitely a big piece of that. And our team absolutely loves working on restaurant grand openings. They're very passionate about it. And it's just something that we do very well. We have a pretty standardized plan we follow for most of our clients. Every client's different, especially if it's fine dining versus fast casual, depending on the type of restaurant it is. But that's where we excel, and to be honest with you, I think the reason it's where we excel the most is because it is where the current team's passion lies, and I think it's always easier to excel at something that you're really passionate about.
Absolutely. I can see that for sure. It's very interesting, as I know you mentioned in our earlier conversation that you guys support a number of different industries. And so that's a really interesting niche. And I could see how that would be a really exciting kind of project for your team to work on.
Mhm, absolutely, it's definitely a favorite of the agency. Anytime we see a new business prospect come in that has a grand opening, everyone gets very thrilled. I think people also on our team love to have that sneak peek and know, "Oh, this is coming," and we know when and where. That's just very
Mm-hmm.
fun to be a part of.
Love that. Well, so, on the flip side of that, I think you mentioned that you're a very lean team of about 11 people. And as someone who oversees operations, you're keeping a close pulse on, where the bottlenecks are, properly resourcing and protecting the team's capacity, right? And so, where are you seeing any, friction or bottlenecks with regard to operations, that naturally come with business growth?
Well, I would say trying to determine how many people we want to put on our accounts can be difficult from time to time because, from my perspective, I'm always looking at, okay, what's this client paying us in terms of the project or retainer? And then I kind of backtrack into that on, about how many hours do we need per month to service this and how many people can we split that in between? I guess I would say it's hard to determine what piece of that business those people are going to work on. So there's many different things that we have in our scope of work, like for a restaurant grand opening, for example. We have somebody working on the community piece of it, trying to bring in the Chamber of Commerce and do a ribbon cutting. We have somebody inviting in influencers. We have somebody inviting in media. We have somebody handling the social media as well, leading up to the event and opening. And so the brain would automatically think, okay, you're going to need at least four people working on that so they can carry on each piece. But then again, you want to remain profitable, right? For the project or the retainer fee that we're bringing in. So I would say just staffing in general can be a difficult piece, and can be a bottleneck because you're trying to figure out how to remain profitable, but also how to make sure the team feels enough support on these accounts that they're on. And, is going to have time to work on their other clients too. That's something that's always an issue at agencies, being able to balance and maintain the amount of attention that each client gets.
Very important point, and can totally relate to that as a consulting firm owner. I mean, it's great if you have kind of like annual, monthly, or, ongoing retainers for long-term engagements, which can make it a lot easier for you to plan your overhead and, head count. But, if you have stop and go kind of short-term projects, which is not an uncommon thing, especially for
Mhm.
launches and things like that, that can make it a little bit more tricky. I've definitely experienced that.
Yep, absolutely.
Could you share a time when your leadership was tested? Typically, as leaders, we have these defining moments where, we're stretched, where we're challenged, where something doesn't, a project or a conversation with an employee or something doesn't turn out how we thought it would. And it just prompts these moments of self reflection where we just learn about ourselves. And sometimes that prompts change. Could you think about a moment where you feel like your leadership was tested and what that taught you about yourself?
My mind immediately goes to, and it's not one moment in particular, but a situation I've dealt with a few different times is if a client ever comes to me and is upset about something, whether it's not hitting a KPI or not getting X placement here or not being pleased with the social content calendar they received this month,
Mhm.
balancing that conversation with the client and helping them, well, first of all, understanding the issue and then getting back to the team since I'm not involved in the day to day and working on these accounts, then communicating that to the team, getting to the root of the issue, figuring out what it is, and being able to go back to the client and communicate how we're going to change, make this right, make this better. We've been very fortunate to have really great clients over the years and truly don't receive too many complaints. They're definitely far and few between, but I have noticed from time to time, since I'm not in these accounts working on them daily, and we have so many clients, I can't, know exactly what's going on every single day for each account. There's been times where I've heard one thing from the client, brought it back to the team, and the team said, "No, that's not how this happened. There was a misunderstanding," and then having to go back to the client to communicate that. That can always be challenging. And so I think what I've learned from that is just to understand the perspective of the team, and definitely try to hear both sides of it first and talk to both sides with some perspective from the other side as well. So that way they can understand, where my team's coming from and my team can understand where the client's coming from. So again, like I said, it's definitely far and few between. It hasn't happened too often, but it's a time where I always feel a bit, for lack of a better word, awkward, kind of trying to be that middleman that goes from the team to the client to make sure that KPIs are being met and happiness is ensured.
Yeah, client management can feel like an impossible job, and it really does take a
Yeah.
certain kind of person to be able to be that middleman and, keep your cool, hear both sides, and then come to a solution that makes the client happy, but also doesn't make your team feel slighted or disempowered.
Mhm.
It's such an important job, but it can be emotionally taxing sometimes. I know.
Yes, it definitely can. It absolutely can.
Courtney, I'm curious to know, what are you focused on for next quarter? What are some of your priorities, whether it be building new capabilities for the power group or changing your ops structure or new business development? What would you say is your top priority going into the next quarter?
Mine right now is biz dev and sales, all full steam ahead. We, with the way the economy is right now, many different things going on in the world, we've had a few clients drop off and roll off recently, not due to issues with work or anything like that. It's really all every client I've spoken to recently, it's about budget. And so right now, really trying to go full steam ahead on new business and bringing in clients who want to stay with us for the long haul. We love our projects, we love our restaurant grand openings, but we also want to work with clients who want to be with us long term and grow with us. One of our client relationships that we're most proud of is the client who's been with us for 24 of our 25 years. So that's huge
Um,
and very unheard of, especially in the small agency world. And we're looking to replicate businesses like that. One other even more specific thing that I'm focused on in the biz dev department is we really want to grow our client portfolio in terms of working with franchisee groups. So we work with some people at the corporate level, of course, and that's how our client of 24 of our 25 years has been. We work with them on a corporate level. But we've started tapping into more franchise brands, and we're finding that especially for the really large ones, we love finding these different groups that own specific areas. We work with a coffee brand right now and the franchisee group that specifically has rights to Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to get into the group that's in Dallas. So kind of taking a different approach there versus going straight to corporate, working within these groups and building our way through those, building trust with those clients, and then expanding the portfolio from there.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Kortni, you have already shared so many great insights with us today, just about your career trajectory and how you've built such great culture and developed such amazing clients and done just impactful work under the Power Group. I like to wrap up all of my interviews by asking my guest what their one bright idea is. A bright idea could be a mindset shift, a strategy, a tool, something that's made a positive difference for you or the business lately. What would your one bright idea be?
I would say my bright idea is over communication, especially over communicating during change. I think it's something that our company is very fortunate to be able to do easily because we are a smaller firm. But I've found that when something is about to change, whether it be, bringing on a new tool, having a staffing change, an account change, what type of business we're working with that we might sign soon, I think over communicating and making sure the team is aware of what's going on builds a ton of respect within your people. And that respect leads to trust, and that leads to people wanting to stay with you for many, many years. So, my bright idea is always over communicating where appropriate.
There you have it. Amazing. Kortni, if there are individuals in the audience who would like to learn more about the Power Group, where can they find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you could shoot me an email, Courtney at thepowergroup.com. Also, you could go to our website, which is going to be www.thepowergroup.com, or check out our social media channels that are linked on our website as well.
Fantastic. Kortni, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks for tuning in to Bright Ideas. If today's episode gave you something to think about, here's your next step. DM me the word growth on LinkedIn to start a conversation about how we can help you scale smarter. And if you're a founder, CEO, or senior talent leader with a story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out about joining me on a future episode. And if you don't want to miss future conversations, be sure to follow the show, leave a quick rating, and download your favorite episodes to take them on the go. Your support helps more leaders discover bright ideas. Until next time, be bold, be resilient, be sharp. I'm Desiree B. Sharp.